Hi there, my name's Jane Anderson and this is the Jane Anderson Brand You Show. It's the podcast for experts who want to have greater impact, influence and income for their businesses and careers. As experts, we know that people buy from people and work with people who they know, who they like and who they trust. So I'm so glad you're here because it's that time again now to really amplify how you show up in the world. Hi there and welcome to the Jane Anderson Brand You Show. I am so pleased that you're here today. Today we're going to be talking about storytelling and how it fits into your personally branded business. As you know, we talk all things brand you, and that's particularly if you have your business branded as yourname.com. So you are the go-to person. So today I'm going to be talking about storytelling and how that fits into your and how storytelling fits into your name and your branding and how it can help you stand out. So, I don't know about you, but one of my favorite things to do is travel, and my favorite place in the world to go to is the US. I just love going there. I just find, it's got so much vibrance and energy, and people are I find generally Americans really optimistic. I think they're big picture thinkers. They live in this world of possibility. But one of my favorite places to go in the US is Las Vegas. And I've been there a number of times, and every time I go, I just fall in love with the place. There's just so much to do. There's so stimulating for the eyes. I could just walk through hotels for hours. I look at all the beautiful designs and the stores and the ideas that people have. It's just so big. It's bigger than Ben-Hur, yet there's so much attention to detail. I love seeing the restaurants, and I love the theater, which is the other reason why I love going to Las Vegas, because I love the theater. I love seeing shows, whether it's musicals or comedy or whatever it might be. I did a lot of drama at school, so it's just one of those places that just switches me on. I usually have to come back and have a holiday when I get back because I'm completely overstimulated. But I'm not a gambler. But the other reason why I love going there is because, and particularly the US, is because I love customer service. And I remember in 2012, I was in a situation with my business. I remember kind of being at this point where we had a lot of really negative things happening in Queensland at the time. We had a change of government. We had 17,000 people made redundant from the public service. And I remember finding the mindset a little bit flat at the time, and I was finding it really hard to be inspired. So what I did was I thought, you know what? I'm just going to get on a plane and I'm going to get out of here. So I jumped on a plane and off I went to Vegas for a week. I thought that's exactly what I need. But one of the other reasons why I went was something that had always been on my wish list, was to go and have a look at the Wynn Encore and to look at some of the hotels that Steve Wynn owns. Now, if you don't know who Steve Wynn is, Steve Wynn, if you're Australian and you're listening to this, you probably don't know who he is, but he started on the Las Vegas Strip as a property developer and started a number of the hotels way back in the 40s, 50s, back when Vegas first started. When he became very close friends with Frank Sinatra, and the Sinatra restaurant is in the Wynn Encore Hotel over there. And when I got there, one of my dreams was to go and just walk through the Wynn Encore. I'd heard about it, and if you get to go and see it, it is absolute magic. It is just beautiful. And so it was quite new at the time, and it's just an absolute feast for the eyes. And there's not a single part of the hotel that's not untouched by the most beautiful fabrics, lighting, architecture, sculptures, things you've ever seen in your life. I literally felt like I was Dorothy in the Emerald City when I was there, and it's just absolutely breathtaking. I think it's beautiful. And I remember this particular day, I arrived at 3:00 in the afternoon, and lunchtime had just passed, and it wasn't quite dinner time, and I was looking for somewhere that I could grab a bite to eat, and because I'd just come from Australia, so I just landed, and it was the first thing I wanted to go and do. So I was wandering around, and this security guard came up to me, and he said, "Ma'am, you're looking a little bit lost. Can I help you?" And I said, "Oh, look, I'm looking for somewhere to just grab a bite to eat. I think most things are kind of closed for lunch and they're opening for dinner later. But is there anywhere I could go for afternoon tea?" And he said, "Of course, ma'am. Let me check for you." So he took a piece of paper out of his pocket, and it had a list of all the activities for the day. And I noticed at the bottom of the page it said, "Have you got a story to tell? Share your customer story if you went above and beyond for a customer today." So I asked the security guard. Now I was a bit cheeky because I knew what it meant, but I wanted to ask him what he tells me. I wanted to see what he would say. So I asked him what that meant. And he quickly just brushed it aside and he said, "Oh, look, it's no problem. It's just something that we do internally." And he just folded up his piece of paper and just put it in his pocket and started to tell me where I could go for afternoon tea. And I said, "Look, I hope you don't mind me asking, but I've just heard about the storytelling work that Steve Wynn does in his hotels, and I'd be really curious to just learn a little bit more about it. But I'd love to know it from your perspective." And he said, "Look, the way that it works is that," he said, "that the way they work in customer service there, and the way that Steve Wynn is across what goes on in all his hotels. He has the Bellagio, MGM Grand, and all these amazing places. And he said that the way it works is that if you have gone above and beyond for a customer that day, you email the story. That goes to your management team. And if they decide that it's good enough, then at your team management meeting, immediately film crews come in, they film the story, it gets uploaded on the intranet immediately, and Steve Wynn sees it. And from there you're acknowledged for going out of your way to go and solve customer problems." And even there's an interview with Steve Wynn on YouTube, and he says, "So you know what? I got everyone out there trying to find me a problem," which is fantastic. When we work with customer service, I think particularly in Australia where service is pretty ordinary most of the time, the branding that works and customer service that comes from branding, it means that his team members are actively out looking for problems. They're not hiding from them. How many customers do you know? How many organisations and businesses do you go into when there looks like a problem and people just happen to be completely looking the opposite way, accidentally, on purpose, and, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that." So his staff are deliberately out there trying to find problems to solve. And his Win On Core hotel staff, there's 12,000 staff there alone, and that's just one of his hotels. And even the interview that's on YouTube, it's an interview with Steve Robinson from the Hoover Institution, and he says, really at the heart of being able to ensure that each person lives and breathes that brand can be found in one word, and that is the culture, and the culture that business creates. And he says that to create a service culture by raising the individual employee's self-esteem is one of the best ways to make that happen. And one of the best ways that you can do that to tap into their self-esteem is storytelling. And that way you can have employee of the month, but that just relies on being noticed by your manager. It doesn't tap into the self-esteem of the individual. And he said also that, when you look at someone, if you look at a customer, it's like a customer's like kind of lost and they need a bit of guidance, or they're delivering, they're personally delivering coffee to a room or whatever it means, there's an opportunity. Problems are opportunities, and those opportunities are the way that you can connect and engage and inspire your customers. And even if I look at Steve Wynn and his journey, I remember I watched a documentary that was when the Borgata was built in Atlantic City in 2006. And in that documentary, one team member, their motivation was to be such a part of the Wynn business and the Wynn organisation that he applied to work there for free. That's how badly he wanted to work there. So this is just such a great example how certain people align with certain values in businesses and create such vision that at the exclusion of a salary. I just think that's extraordinary. And people want to be inspired. They want to be part of something. And that kind of workplace is just priceless. And I think the other person that comes to mind who does some good storytelling, and when I look at, say, Don Meij is the CEO of Domino's Pizzas. And his story, his background was that he came through the ranks. He was the pizza delivery guy. He started there when he was 15. And he worked his way up. He owned franchises and he went on to be the regional manager and operations manager and then on to the CEO. And his story is so unique and it's so memorable and it aligns with his purpose and what the organisation is all about. So it's also a great story for his personal marketing, but not everyone is lucky enough to have that kind of story for their CEO. So storytelling is, I think, in the Australian Financial Review in February 2014, it was identified as one of the top skills for leaders to be able to master for the future. And it's also one of the best branding tools to use as part of your personal brand. And the reason why it's so powerful is it just creates such an emotional based connection with your customer. So when I say your customer, that's whether it's a colleague, your team member you've got working with you, a client, or whoever it might be, an audience member, a person reading your blog. Storytelling absolutely connects, engages, and inspires your customer. And when I think about it, if you look at someone like Aristotle said the key to influencing somebody is that you need three things. You need ethos, logos, and pathos. And ethos is you need credibility. You need ethos comes from someone said something or you've got some kind of background in it. Logos comes from logic and what the evidence or data is there to support your claims. And pathos is the emotional connection. It's the empathy that engages. And that emotional connection, if you can connect emotionally, it will fast track to your customer's brain. And Yamini Naidu and Gabrielle Dolan, they're the authors of the book Hooked, how leaders can engage and inspire with storytelling. And they are global thought leaders in storytelling and business communication. And they say that there are really two things you need to be good at to have, that you need for storytelling in your business. The first one is, do people hang on to every word you say? Can they remember what you say and can they repeat it? So if you're telling a story, if you've got a story as part of your brand, then can people repeat it to you? Do you hear it coming back to you? And I think, and then they say the other question is, how purposeful are you with your storytelling? What message do you want your stories to contain? So, and if you think about this, if you're an expert in your field, if you're a thought leader or a professional services, or you're going out on your own under yourname.com, this links to Simon Sinek's work around start with why, or you've got to understand the why, and the way that you can bring a why to life in your personal branding is through storytelling. And it sits quite often in keynotes. It will sit more often than not even on your about page on your website. Some people ask me if it goes on a LinkedIn page on your summary area. 9 times out of 10 I say no, but if you've got a story like Don Meij's from the CEO from Domino's, then I'd go, yeah, that's a pretty good story for a summary. So I reckon you kind of want to start to keep a bit of a journal around your stories, even if you keep a file somewhere in your inbox, and start to capture what are some of the stories that make up your brand and your personal brand and the experiences that you've had. If you look at my about us page or about Jane page, I have a couple of whys, or I have a couple of stories on my About Us page, and there are two significant moments in my career and business that are the reason why I do what they do. So that I do what I do. So one was when I had got divorced. I had to move back to the city, start my life all over again, and I couldn't get a job. And my problem was, and isn't it ironic, this was before I had my business. This was many years ago. And, I was so frustrated. And my mum had said to me, I think it's about time you have a chat to Centrelink, because clearly what you're doing is not working. So off, I said to her, this just doesn't seem fair. I know I'm good at this stuff. I know I can do this, but it's so much harder when it's yourself. But the job market had changed, and there were so many different pieces of information out there, and I couldn't get a straight answer, and the old ways of doing things were not working. And here I was, I'd been on recruitment panels and all those types of things, and here I was struggling myself. So one of the reasons I do what I do is because the way that we struggle sometimes to market ourselves, particularly at a time when we lack confidence and when you're needing, to be able to stand out. My other story that's on my About Us page that you might see is I started my business. I had a business called Inside Out Training and Coaching, which I still have. And with that business, I built it up, and then we had a change of government and all sorts of things happened. And I started again, but I started again under yourname.com, which is Jane Anderson or Jane-Anderson.com. And wow, everything moved faster. So one of the reasons why I do what I do is because people find it difficult to sell themselves, particularly Aussies. We're a pretty laid back kind of bunch. And plus my own personal experience with my own business, plus trying to get jobs. And because, we're not necessarily center of attention. I'm not a selfie taker. I hate selfies. I'm not a center of attention. I don't like doing a lot of, look at me kind of stuff. But I get that I have to do it as part of my job. But I also have to do it to inspire my customers to go, look, it's okay. It's going to be all right. And when you've got a brand new business, you've got to get comfortable doing that. And your personal brand will come through your storytelling and your why. So I think there's a couple of things to consider. I think that you want to think about what's your purpose. So be really clear about what you're trying to create. When you're telling stories, you really want to think about what's the message I'm trying to send here to create and establish that connection with my audience. And I think the other thing is to think about what medium are you using to tell that story. So for instance, is it being told verbally? So is it in a presentation? Is it online? Is it like this in a podcast? Is it in your LinkedIn area? Is it on your website and your About Us page? I think it's one of the things I really struggled when I was learning about storytelling. I found people weren't giving me clear direction about what story went where. They just said, you can use it on these areas. So I think you want to be quite deliberate and really think about what's the purpose of this page? What's the purpose of this medium? How does the how does the customer absorb this story? And is it in the context of what I'm trying to sell or influence or persuade? And will that connect for them? Will that make sense for them in order for me to help them? So storytelling, I think when you first start, it might feel a bit like you're dumping a whole lot of stuff and you just don't even know where to put it. And you're putting it as part of your personal branding collateral. And I totally understand. I've been there. And it can feel like you have all these pieces to a jigsaw puzzle and you have no idea where they go. You don't know what matches a message or a moment or give it meaning. And so you might feel a little bit lost. And so you just really got to think about what story matches the customer motivation at exactly that moment in time. Because if your customer can't see themselves in your story, no matter how good it is, it will fall on deaf ears. And however, if that story really connects with those who are going through that same problem, then your story needs to amplify that problem. So the challenge for you, I think, when it comes to storytelling as part of your personal brand, and you might like to have a think about it, is who are you trying to persuade? What stories are you going to use to engage their hearts and their minds to want to connect and work with you? So keep a journal. I think you might want to do that. Think about your purpose and what's the real medium that's being used. So if you would like to find out more information or connect with me further to find out more about storytelling, I do a little bit of work on storytelling in my impact book. You're very welcome to have a look on my website, jane-anderson.com.au in the books area. And you'll see the other books there. The latest book is Connect, which is how to build your LinkedIn, how to leverage your LinkedIn profile for business growth and lead generation in less than 7 minutes a day. And The other tools that are on there, you'll see my Connect online program, which matches the book. It's my masterclass recorded into an online course, and it's $497. So you're very welcome to jump on there, have a look around, follow my blogs, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and of course, show me your stories, tag me in your stories. I'd love to see them. So thanks very much. I hope you have a fantastic week, and I will see you or talk to you on the next podcast.